Welcome, everyone. I have such a special opportunity today to talk to another Thelemite and someone I absolutely love and consider a friend of mine. So that's so cool. And I have been wanting an excuse to have Star Sapphire on my channel for ages. And I am so grateful to them for lending their energy and their time with me today. So, we are going to talk all about and have a very honest and frank conversation about stereotypes and assumptions about Thelemites. And we are just going to break it down for you. So, you may have heard some things online or had things you wanted to ask, but were too afraid to. And so, hopefully, we're going to get to that today. I really appreciate, especially having Star Sapphire here, and not just myself talking to you all about this, so we can have a diversity of opinions on this, on all the subjects we're covering. As many of you all know, I am actually on the East Coast of the US, and Star Sapphire is on the West Coast, so there's a little bit of cultural variation there going on. And also, Star Sapphire is a burlesque performer and bringing that perspective as well. So, for people who may not be familiar with your work, could you please introduce yourself and some of the projects you're currently working on?
Yes, hi. So I'm Star Sapphire. I live in San Francisco and I'm a burlesque performer. So my tagline is actually Memento Mori with a side of dat ass, spelled DAAT. So yeah, basically my work as like a burlesque performer is I base my acts on Hermetic Kabbalah, which is actually kind of easy because you can also correspond the Hermetic Kabbalah with the tarot. So basically what I'm doing is making an act to each tarot card. Basically, there's definitely other occult burlesque performers out there. Some of them are friends of mine. I know even other Thelemic burlesque performers, but as far as I know, I am the only burlesque performer that has used 777 to make sure that my correspondences in my acts were correct.
Yeah, and I have been wanting to see your acts in person. So if you are blessed enough to have the opportunity to see Star Sapphire do a performance, make sure you don't miss that because I love following you on social media with all of the incredible costumes you put together, all of the thoughtfulness, the creativity. It is just so inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, some of them are like a lot more goofy, like my Emperor act. I'm a boomer dad with like Costco t-shirt and everything. But then some of them I like my full act is very much like inspired by the depiction of the fool in the Thoth Tarot. So some of them are a little bit more abstract and some of them it's kind of all over the place, which is life and the occult
Mhm.
as well. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, okay, let's not waste any time and really just get right into it. And I'm just going to quote a comment I saw on the internet and I'll put it up on screen for you all. And it goes, quote, "As someone who is an outsider, I've heard someone else describe Thelema to have a following of, as they describe, lots of elitists and a far right element. So, are Thelemites far right? Is this a true stereotype?"
no, because I'm a socialist. So obviously not. Um, it's hard. Once you get into like online spaces, I'm not really on Twitter anymore. When I was
Mm,
on Twitter is I think when I ran into like more issues of talking to like other problematic occultists. But yeah, not really on Twitter anymore because who is? Um, but I definitely ran into that a lot more. And unfortunately, I think what the problem is the people who are kind of more far right or alt right or whatever it is, are just kind of the loudest.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I think that there are so many practitioners who keep to themselves or don't even
mm-hmm.
have online presences. And so they're the ones that are not really being representative. And so, unfortunately, when you are going into really toxic places like Twitter or Reddit, like those are the first things that you're going to see. But no, I actually wrote an article a couple years ago, um, going by my old stage name, and I actually wrote exactly about this topic, and I truly do believe still that Thelema is anti-fascist at its core.
Mm.
So I don't know. I'm sure somebody out there is gonna watch this and be like, "Ew, no," but
But those people are wrong. I'm just kidding. Uh,
I mean,
well, here, yeah, and I think you summed up the core of sort of how I view it as well. There's not only a selection bias, as you mentioned, on the internet, and then there's also this idea of staying silent and embracing the powers of the Sphinx within Thelema and keeping this private. And a lot of people don't have the luxury of being out with their beliefs, their practices, their religion, whether it's their family, their local community, especially being on the East Coast and the South. Wow, that's happening a lot. So a lot of people have very satanic panic like ideas of Thelemites, and people choose to be quiet about it. And in my opinion, as you said in your article and just now, the truth of the matter is it's really hard to be far right and let's just say embracing a lot of Thelemic ideas, like straight out of our central sacred holy text, the Book of the Law. It says every man and every woman is a star. It doesn't say men are superior to women. It's so this idea of equality is hard baked into the OG central sacred holy text. So that being said, and there's other examples I could go into about ideas of women's liberation, ideas of feminism, ideas of, equality, diversity, inclusion, celebrating all of humanness and its beautiful diversity of whatever that means. But there's also, when it comes to people, and the way I always describe it to people is the Thelemic community and group is a microcosm of the larger society macrocosm. And for better or worse, we reflect that macrocosm. A lot of us, although we make great effort to shed some of those oppressive, dogmatic ideas of the larger society or repressive values, whatever it may be, sometimes people bring that into the space. I would say in Thelema, I would say there's more left leaning queer people in general, overwhelmingly so, just based on the central tenets, it attracts people and people tend to go that direction. But there is still the reflection of our larger society we live in, and some people do have different political beliefs. It's hard to be very far right extremist because you won't be welcomed, you will be kicked out of spaces, especially if you have, I don't know, I would say antisocial behavior as a result of your beliefs. But that's just something to keep in mind that I would say for the most part we aren't.
I also feel that there's this element of like people who think that Thelema is about copying the activities and the behavior of like Aleister Crowley.
Mm,
And so there's also this kind of like libertarian like sense to it. Like I definitely know somebody like that in person. I'm not even friends with them anymore, but I feel like I know more like left leaning and liberal and queer Thelemites and occultists in general than I do know more the other side of it.
yeah.
And then also, I mean, you have to take into account the fact that like Crowley himself was anti-fascist and
Hmm.
like uh, sorry, words. um I think there's a book that's going to be coming out about that, about the witches that were like fighting the Nazis through magic.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
That sounds
Yeah,
cool. I haven't heard of
I
that one.
saw something about that like recently. And Crowley was supposedly a part of that, about
Cool.
using magic to, fight the Nazis. So, it's kind of weird that we have these, like, I call them like Crowleyites, as opposed to Thelemites,
Hmm.
who think, Crowley did all this terrible behavior, therefore I'm going to be like a person also.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are great points. Like Crowley, as an act against fascism during World War II, actually wrote anti-war poetry as a magical act. So he was doing that. He also came out with Liber Oz, otherwise known as the Rights of Man, during the winter solstice, which is basically what it says on the cover. It's a declaration of human rights for all people. So. Yeah, I think that covers it. And I just want to point out here, the interesting consensus between both of us that most Thelemites are left-leaning, queer of some variety, because you would imagine like maybe on the West Coast that would be the case, and maybe but no, I'm telling you from the southeastern coast of the U.S., which is known for being very conservative, our pockets of Thelemites are very left-leaning. Let me tell you. So I think that's a pretty good selection across. So yeah. Okay, so the next one, and this is something I've seen a lot more in like mundane spaces. Like I recently picked up a magazine at a grocery store, and of course it's spooky season, so we gotta bring out the caricature of Crowley and Thelemites, and um, the idea is, are we evil and do we do black magic?
So my personal opinion of this is that I think that evil is kind of a subjective word. I don't necessarily believe in like good and evil. I think that my ideas of what are good and evil are going to be probably similar to yours, but we're going to have differences. um so I think that's kind of like a very like old aeonic like Christian, kind of dogma of like, this is good, this is bad, this is black magic. I think it also relates a lot to like satanic panic. I unfortunately have family members who, they will see some of the things that I post online. I try to not post that stuff so much on Facebook, where I am friends with family members. But yeah, a couple years back, I had a little bit of satanic panic within the family
Oh.
concerning me. It was kind of interesting that I was supposedly performing black magic and this and that.
Mm.
And it wasn't even necessarily that like I was aware that I was performing, black magic
Mm.
and welcoming the devil in. It was kind of more of this idea that I didn't know what I was like messing with. And so
Mm.
therefore I was inviting the devil in. So yeah, I think that to in order to believe that you're doing black magic, you kind of have to believe that there are such things as good and evil. Uh, Thelema at its core is more about the self and
Mm.
finding, the star, every man and every woman and everyone in between. I'm non-binary, is a star, so it's a very personal journey. So I mean, like, what is your definition of black magic? Is it, am I out there like cursing people or this and that? Not to say that that doesn't happen and that I don't know people who have done that before, but yeah, it really is just kind of a subjective thing.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I would consider what I do as a Thelemite to be beyond that binary of good and evil. I don't really subscribe to this model of black versus white magic. And I'm not the right person to talk about this, but I saw someone did an essay unpacking the term black magic as in and of itself a problematic term that has like roots in, colonization and like othering other people, and I'm not the right person to talk about that. I only read a few things, but I think that's an interesting point to examine the language we're using to label others. I would not say what I do is black magic. I would not say what I do is evil. I do believe what I do in my daily practice, my monthly practice, my yearly practice, the journey I am on is one towards the divine and unification of the self, ultimately. So I don't, I don't understand that in any definition of evil or black magic I have read to be that. So that's my take on that for sure. So there's your answer, y'all. We're not doing that for the most part. I don't view it that way. And that's not to say that there aren't, individuals perhaps who may use those words, try to reclaim them, and that's their business. But for the most part, I think most Thelemites don't understand that to be the case. Um, all right, so moving on to a difficult subject. We're transitioning to the harder topics to cover here. But this next one is this idea that um, we are all hedonists, or we are all living a lifestyle of excess, of consumption, of pleasure. What would you say to that?
So we were talking about this a little bit before I started recording. I think that you summed it up pretty well, that essentially, if that is the life that you're following, you're probably not following your true will. And that is literally what Thelema means, is will. So you're not if you're following that, you're probably straying very far away from whatever your true will is, unless that is your true will. I don't think that's my true will.
Yeah,
um, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely the aspect of like when I was younger and thought that I was supposed to, like, I was basically a people pleaser, right?
mm,
And I was supposed to do these certain milestones in life. And now that I'm older and realize, oh, wait, I don't actually have to do any of those things, a lot of times I'm seen as selfish. And again, that's a completely subjective thing. So I don't think anyone's out there accusing me of like being a hedonist,
sure,
but I
sure.
can see how like no longer being a people pleaser all of the time
Mm,
and having boundaries can be seen as like, oh yeah, you're just living a life for yourself. You're seeking pleasure.
mm.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I think there's a lot of things that people see from the outside that gets very misinterpreted. Um, First and foremost, I think, is the phrase that is very central to the Thelemic philosophy, the Thelemic idea, which is do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. And people think this phrase means do whatever you want, when in reality, this is actually quite a restrictive phrase because it's a charge for you to live not according to your whims or what you feel like doing in the moment, but it's a charge to live in accordance with your will or this innermost spark of divinity so that your actions may aid you in doing your will and going forward along that path. So, for example, I give this example a lot, I'll give it again. But basically, if in the moment I wanted to get a little wild at night and have a bunch of drinks and, get blackout drunk and party with people, but the next day I had a really important interview for a job that was in alignment with my will, it's a job I really wanted, it was a good career move. And if I chose to drink and party that night before and I woke up late, I woke up hungover, and I did terrible on that interview, that would not be doing my will. That would not be do what thou wilt. That would be the exact opposite of it because I am actively hindering myself from doing my will. So that's an example of like so many things are choices I make not doing something, but choosing not to do something to make sure I'm staying in alignment with my will. So, also from the outside looking in, some of our rituals may look, and the symbols we use may look a little bit different from what people are used to seeing, maybe, for example, in Christianity, and they may interpret that as just like, oh, they're just like partying and like, I don't know, being hedonistic in their actions, when in reality, a lot of our rituals have deep spiritual significance, and it's maybe not what you think is happening.
I mean, you bring up that point too of like from the outside looking in, right? Of
Mm,
course, also like what people see on social media,
yes.
that's not even a fraction of our lives. Like I'm a burlesque performer, so what I'm going to post on social media is going to be mainly what to do with like what my work is, along with a lot of just really stupid memes. But that aside, I'm going to post my thirst traps. I'm going to post my, videos of me performing on stage. My art's very sexy. It's this and that. That's not what my life looks like at all. Most of the time, I am at home in my PJs watching something stupid on Netflix with my cat. Like, so yeah, I mean, someone's gonna be like, oh, they're a burlesque performer and they're an occultist. Like, all they're doing is sexy this and that. No, no, no. That is not my life at all.
Yeah, that's a really great point about how people perceive an individual just based on social media. I mean, even mine, like I don't post my entire life on social media. Most of my life is actually quite boring. It's very, at this point in my life, it's very research intensive and very, I'm doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of writing. And so, that's not on social media. I don't know. I don't, it's always baffling to me when people interpret me just simply being an occultist as some sort of hypersexuality, which isn't the case at all.
And then also, when you were talking about this, example, I went out to drink and then I
Hmm.
didn't, and then I wasn't doing my will. I actually have a really funny, relatable story
Oh, great, yeah.
to that. I mean, maybe not funny, like I probably should have went to the hospital, but I
Oh
didn't, and I
no.
didn't die. Um, so like I've only been in burlesque for like 2 years. So my it wasn't quite my debut performance, but it was one of my first ever
Mm.
performances. I was so nervous. And so I had like a drink before I went on. And it was a little bit tipsy when I went on stage. And then afterwards it went so well. That was actually my devil act that I did to a Twin
Oh,
Temple song, which was so fun.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have like Anton LaVey like audio clips in it. It's
Oh
a
my
fun act.
gosh.
Anyways, it went over so well. So then I was like, yay, I'm so happy. Let me go drink some more. And one thing led to another. This is exactly why I do not drink before I perform anymore. I don't even drink at all that much anymore because of what happened. One thing led to another. I ended up getting so drunk. Now, this
Mm.
was what's so funny about it is at the time I was actually in the middle of working the Arbitone,
Oh
and I
my
was
gosh.
working with Airtron that week, which is the Saturn spirit.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I ended up laying on my floor, being hung over for 3 days. I'm not even
Oh
joking.
my gosh.
3 days. I probably had acute alcohol poisoning. I was
Oh
like
my
in
gosh.
so much pain and I did not even do the ritual that week. And I was like, because with the Arbitel,
Hmm.
if no, if anyone out there is not too familiar, you're prepping for like a whole week before you actually do it. And the way that I had done it with the group that I was working with was we would instead of doing it all at once, like over a week, we did each spirit like 1 week.
Hmm.
So we would just prep for that one spirit over, 7 days and then do the ritual for that one spirit. I think traditionally how you're supposed to do it is you prep for a week and then you do every spirit every day. So we didn't do it like that. So it was a little more interesting because I had more time to really like sit with like the
Mm.
spirit that I was working with. So yeah, it was Saturn, and there were a lot of lessons. It was not just me laying on the floor; it was like me laying on the floor in pain
Oh
and
my
like
gosh.
just thinking about a lot of, things, a lot of life lessons,
Mhm.
and how I kind of was not really living my will.
Yeah.
So that's actually the main reason why I don't really drink anymore. Occasionally I will have a drink, but yeah.
Wow.
So that week I learned that hedonism is not always the path to go down.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. First of all, I'm so glad you're okay. That I had no idea that was going on.
This was like over 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad you came out of that okay. And it sounded like Saturn had a few lessons for you, which is something Saturn's lessons are not fun. Um
Oh yeah.
um yeah, I think there is that like I just from a human standpoint, like I had to go through that as well. Like I had to figure out for me, what are too many drinks? Where's the sweet spot? And now, like, I'm at a point in my life where, after finding that limit, after finding what's okay for me, I don't really drink at all. I basically stopped drinking. I will drink for ritual purposes and if I'm out
Yeah.
with friends socially, because I do genuinely love, you know, a nice drink, something that tastes really good, something creative, local. I love that whole experience, especially going out to like a brewery or something with friends, having one, maybe two drinks, but that's about my limit. And actually, I was out with a bunch of Thelemites, and it was like sort of like a dance situation, and I had like maybe one drink, maybe two maximum that evening, and someone offered me another drink, and I said, thank you, but I'm at my limit. Like, this is it for me. And they looked me dead in the eye. A Thelemite I didn't know very well, mind you, and they said, I respect that so much. And I was like, thank you. And I think that's a general idea of most Thelemites is like finding what's right for you and enforcing those boundaries and having the courage and the strength to know your limits and keep that sort of wild, I don't want to say wild side, but you know what I mean, like keep that in check. And I think that that's for the most part very respected. I mean, I know quite a number of Thelemites who are completely sober, people who don't indulge in any kind of anything. I think for the most part, not to do a stereotype in the opposite direction, but if you were going to stereotype us, like a lot of us are very bookish and very homebodies. So
I
that
think
also.
my cat might want to say hi.
Oh, I
Oh
hope
no, he just jumped off the
so.
couch. Never
Oh, baby.
mind.
Well, hopefully we get a cat visit at some point. Um, so I think that really covers that idea, and sort of busts through this idea of hedonism. And then on that same vein, I often hear the question, and it breaks my heart because it makes me sad people even have to ask this, but they ask, can you be asexual and a Thelemite?
Absolutely. Again, this is, everybody's will is very individualistic to them. And there's nothing in Thelema that says that you were supposed to be having lots of sex all of the time. Um, yeah, and again, from a personal standpoint, like I am in a relationship with someone and it is a sexual relationship. At the same time, I do feel like I am on the aromantic spectrum
Mhm.
and a little bit of on the asexual spectrum as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of have this like on one end of like the like super sexy Thelema, stereotype. You've got like Jack Parsons,
Yeah, love him.
um, which all the power to them and what they were doing over at Agape Lounge or
Hmm.
Lodge. But no, I don't think that you need to be. I don't think that you need to, have sex to be a Thelemite. And of course, if those of you who are familiar with my stage name, I did take it from the ritual. That is a sex magic ritual. I've never done the ritual, but when I decided that I wanted to change my name, I meditated on it for a while. And that was actually like the message that came to me, was that I should change my name to that ritual.
Mm.
Um, you can perform the ritual alone. You don't have to do it with a partner, but it is, a sex magic ritual. But I mean, at the same time, when I'm on stage, or even when I'm just at home and I'm in rehearsal, I
Hmm.
feel like that is me doing a magical ritual. And because my
Yeah.
magic is sexual in nature, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, ew, that's sex magic. But like, there's an element of that, of how I connect to spirit. But yeah, no, you can absolutely be asexual and a Thelemite.
Yeah, and I love hearing you say all of that and sharing all of that. I think it's to be so helpful for people coming at, especially new people who are like, I'm asexual, I'm still trying to figure things out. Do I belong in this community? And I just want to reiterate, yes, you belong here. If you feel a calling, if you feel that pull, absolutely explore Thelema. Being asexual is completely valid. And in some of my own work, although I am not asexual, but I have been thinking I am genderqueer and under that trans umbrella in some sense. I've been thinking a lot about metaphors for unio mystica or the mystical marriage or like some of these other occult ideas of the regenerative properties of life. And truthfully, although sex is a powerful metaphor, um, it's not the only one. And my mind goes to other life on Earth, for example, in terms of these generations of new generations and this life force energy moving throughout our world. I think of trees growing and the roots going down into the soil and spreading out and connecting to fungus within the soil and connecting to other tree roots and communicating that way to each other. I think of bees pollinating flowers. I mean, all of these contain beautiful metaphors for the continuation of life and union. So I think if you are someone in the asexual sphere or whatever you want terms you want to use, and you're uncomfortable with maybe some of the older imagery for the mystical marriage and sex magic and all of this stuff, I say, first of all, you still belong here. I would say, explore other metaphors, explore other types of magic in perhaps your meditations. Excuse me, explore what that means to you, because Thelema is ultimately a journey to know your will. And then once you know it, do it. And that's something only you can really know. And yes, there's a lot of tools out there. Crowley was very meticulous with his tools he made. He journaled like a beast. Ha ha ha, pen intended. Um, but yeah, he journaled like a beast and he put all of this out there so people could see a good example and follow in his footsteps, but you don't have to completely emulate what Crowley did or his rituals. And if something resonates better with you, especially as someone who's asexual, go for it. And that's completely valid. And I know what, because I'm a local community organizer as well here. I run my own study group, I do a lot of stuff, and I intentionally carefully choose my language and the type of events I do to be inclusive. So I just want to say, if you are someone who at any point feels you don't feel represented, come talk to the community organizer. A lot of the events I've been doing have been like teaching bibliomancy or tarot. I did a bunch of tarot classes, that kind of stuff. And it's never come up, but I'm always all ears to learn. So
Yeah. A couple years ago, actually, after I wrote that article, somebody with a cult podcast wanted to interview me
mm,
for an episode they wanted to do about Thelema, and I think that they just never ended up going in like a totally different direction with it. Uh, but I remember one of the questions that they had asked me was like, why is Thelema like the more like sexy, like why is it so sexy, like, and I remember feeling so like caught off guard by that
yeah.
question,
Yeah.
because I just like I that's not necessarily like something that's been that important to me in my like thelemic journey,
Hmm.
and by the way, like if you're not asexual, that's also totally
Yes.
valid. Like I think that, people that do use their sexual practice to get closer to spirit, I think that that's really cool and really beautiful. I just like, I was not expecting like somebody to ask me that. And I think it's very much aligned with like kind of what you're saying, is that there is this like stereotype that like all of us, are like a certain way, are
Hmm.
Jack Parsons essentially.
Well, every single one of us is Jack Parsons.
So yeah, I just remember that being like feeling totally off guard by that, like caught off guard by it. But yeah, for me personally, that's never been something that I've ever really incorporated into like
Mm.
my thelemic practice. So I guess I wouldn't be the person to ask about that. I think I ended up like answering it like, well, I guess God is just really sexy. Like,
That's amazing. I'm saying that from now on. It's like, well, it's not my fault God is sexy, so.
I, I mean, that is, that is the truth. Like, to be perfectly honest, God is just very sexy. I think that, like for example, like if people have like done drugs and they get these kind of like sexy feelings about them,
Mm,
I've had that happen to me also, in rituals, what I've been doing, like this kind of feeling that overcomes me, that it does kind of feel like very sexy almost.
mm,
I had somebody who like hypnotized me one time, and they were
mm,
trying to do like a past life regression type of thing on me.
mm-hmm.
It ended up being a really reading. I just don't think that they could get a good reading on me. But in that state, like I felt like really kind of like sexually elevated almost. And I think that there is something to say about like this idea of like God, whatever that is individually to, everyone out there, that
Mm-hmm.
there is this kind of like sexiness about it. And I don't know, I'm not the person to really ask, but like I do think that there's something to be said about that. But yeah, I was not the person to answer that question.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting for me as someone who's been a practicing Thelemite for a while around other practicing Thelemites, um, it's yeah, again, it's outsider perspective and people being drawn to the small, minute detail that most interests them and then projecting whatever they want on top of it. So there's a lot of projection going on. But speaking frankly, sex magic really isn't a part of my daily practice. It's not a part of my monthly, yearly stuff I do. It's there, right? Like I'm not going to deny it's not a thing people do and myself don't do. But for the most part, it's just such a small part of it. I think what's a huger part of thelemic practice would be journaling, meditation, yoga. Yes, I said yoga. Crowley, Crowley wrote 8 lectures on yoga, so that was a huge part of it. So rituals like that, and then our daily rituals like Liber Resh Vel Helios, saying will, sometimes the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. I mean, these are all the bread and butter of what a lot of Phalamic magic is, and none of that is sex magic. So yeah, there is definitely an
So many
overinflated
beginners,
idea.
so many beginners come to Thelema or to like ceremonial magic, and they
Hmm.
want that like, oh, let's jump to the sex magic, and they don't realize that it
Hmm.
really is doing your pentagrams every day. I mean,
Yeah, you're gonna get
they don't
bigger
want the
bang for
boring
your buck
things.
just managing to meditate regularly. Like that's a great starting place for beginners. That's you're gonna get so much more out of it if you can just master your mind, and then once you master your mind, move on to all kinds of other stuff, banishing, deity work. It just great opportunities out there to delve into Thelemic magic, and you'll probably be shocked by the lack of sex magic. It's such a small and not even necessary part. So that also goes into, yeah, I guess we covered this idea that like rituals and magic aren't necessarily sexual for us, which is such an important topic. And then I often encounter this, which makes me very angry. But the stereotype that AFAB people and femme people are very promiscuous and easy. And this is a hard topic to talk about, but it's one I'm going to drag out into the light. And this idea that it's okay to sexualize us, and it's not okay. Go for it.
So back when I was on Twitter, oh my God, the DMs that I would get from people. It's just like the moment that somebody even just like says the words Scarlet Woman,
Oh,
it's
here we
just like
go.
it's an automatic block from me.
It's an automatic no, straight to jail.
Yeah, I don't know like what that is. I mean, I think that that is just kind of a larger issue in general with like misogyny.
Mhm.
Um, for me personally, I definitely had like a larger following on Twitter than I did that I do on Instagram. And a lot of the people, once Twitter kind of died, a lot of people did come over to my Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, so again, because I'm a burlesque performer and my art is like sexual in nature, I definitely have like more people who follow me for like occult stuff than follow me who are like actual like come to my shows burlesque fans. But I definitely also have a lot of like occult followers who like me because I am bringing my spiritual practice to the stage.
Mhm.
So that being said, I already have people, and I think that this is just a problem being a performer, being someone
Mhm.
who is like seen a certain way in the public, who just don't really understand what boundaries are. Like, what I put on the stage, what I put on my social media out in public, it's like I don't really owe anyone anything more than that.
Yes,
But
100%.
because my art is sexual in nature, people sometimes feel that they are owed more.
Mhm.
So I definitely run into that a lot. And then once you mix what I'm doing with like the occult aspect of it, then you have like all of these what was I've heard a word been called for like these people like the Lieber nuts.
Yeah,
the
yeah, for
ones
sure.
the ones who they maybe need to seek some mental help. I get a lot. I was getting, I don't get them anymore as much. I was getting a lot of like DMs from people like that,
Oh my gosh.
people who believe that they are actual incarnations of either Crowley or
Mhm.
a deity or whatever,
Oh my gosh.
who they see somebody who is out on stage,
Mhm.
they're depicting these archetypes that are found in Thelema on stage, and like, ooh, they're taking their clothes off. And so it's just kind of this like, I'm gonna DM you and like we're gonna have this like relationship, or I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely feel I get it in a different way than maybe other like femme and AFAB occultists get it, just because I do like, I mean, I have pictures on my Instagram of me just wearing pasties.
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely get it in a little bit of a different way just because I am a burlesque performer. But I mean, I know that you get it too, and
Oh
it's just
God.
like it, it's weird. It's weird. Again, I just like I don't owe anybody anything more than what I'm already putting out, and so it's just kind of like odd for people to, and I don't mind a compliment, by all
Mhm.
means. Like, if someone wants to give me a compliment online, thank you. But like, we both know
Yes.
when the line is being crossed.
Yeah, there's a huge difference. And I think people really lose sight of the fact at the end of the day, we're humans. We're individual people with different motives, different boundaries, different values. I mean, as Thelemites, we will agree on a lot of stuff, but um, you still have to take into account, like, for example, hugs. There's some days I'm okay with a hug from a person I just met. There's other days I don't want anyone to touch me. That's just a really simple example, but you really have to remember that everyone's going on their own journey and their own thing. And being a burlesque performer, being a Thelemite, AFAB person, being a Thelemite in general is not it is not a beacon or a sign to come harass us. I don't like that kind of attention from people. I am in a very happy monogamous relationship. I do not want people to come and approach me that way. Um, Even when I was single, I was not open to that kind of attention. You know, again, a compliment, fine. If I'm having a really good day, maybe a hug, maybe we have a drink together, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a line there that's like, okay, this is too much. I don't want to see pictures of your nude body, a person I just met. That's inappropriate to me. I don't want gross
Hmm.
comments. I don't want to be written into stories that are of that nature and then sent to me. That's weird. Um, it's weird. I don't like it. Being a Thelemite is not an invitation to these kind of things, and I just wish I could shout that from the treetops. My spirituality, my religion, my philosophy that's at the inner more core of my being is so important to me, and I mourn the fact that that is in people's minds tethered to it being meaning I'm open to harassment when I'm just not. I'm a person and I don't want that. So
Yeah. And I mean, I do know, other occultists who like they're more in touch with like combining their sexuality with
yes,
their occult practice. Like for example, like Gabby is one of
I
those
love
people
her.
who she is awesome. But
Someone who I've also had on my channel and hope to
oh,
have back in the
yay!
future. So for viewers wanting to hear more from Gabby, check out that interview. She does
But
amazing work.
it's also not okay to like DM her. And I know that she's gotten it too.
Hmm.
And, people sending her just like unsolicited like things or just whatever. Like, just because this is someone who is a witch who uses sexuality in her occult practice, like,
Hmm.
it's not okay to
And
like
and not all
to
femme
act like
people,
that.
exactly, it really isn't. And not all femme people are doing the same things or perhaps even using sexuality. Like we return back to this idea of like some of us are asexual. Some of us just don't engage with that at all. I think my personal practice for the most part is profoundly boring. It's extremely bookish. Um, it's very academic, Apollonian in nature, and very meticulous over things that most people don't care about. So it's just so in my world, in my day-to-day world, I'm going about, I'm doing my boring little academic stuff, which I find exciting. But for most people, it would just bore them to tears. And I'm doing my little rituals, none of which anyone would view perhaps as weird or dark or sexual in nature. And actually, I'll just say a huge part of my practice is yoga. Like, I will do yoga for 1 to 2 hours almost every day. That's kind of where I'm at in my practice. That's a huge part of my core and centering. I take the more so, fun fact, when Crowley received the Book of the Law, he was a Buddhist. So, a lot of the holy text, specifically the Book of the Law, has a reaction to Buddhism, or perhaps like a weird type of Buddhism, is it, inside of it. So, I really cling to that in a lot of my beliefs and how I operate in the world. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So, I'm doing my little thing, and then out of the blue, like a random dude pops up and is like, oh, sexy Thelemite lady, you must be easy to get into bed. And it's like, no, that's not what's happening here. And
Will you be my Scarlet Woman?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's the whole Scarlet Woman thing. And it's also this idea from other practitioners that I'm somehow sexualizing myself and my ritual. It's like, what? You mean like meditating for 1 or 2 hours a day is sexualizing myself? Absolutely not. All of the rituals I do, including the Gnostic Mass, I don't view that as sexualizing myself. I don't view my daily practice as sexualizing myself. I'm my own person. And if someone views any of my practices, including yoga, as sexual, that's on them. That's their problem for projecting that onto me and not the way I view myself at all. That's my soapbox. Had to get that one out there. So that,
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to in general, like with everything, is like consent. Like,
yes.
like if you are going to be practicing like sex magic, then like you're going to be having this consensual relationship with the person that you're going to be performing it with.
Hmm.
And then also, just don't be dropping dick pics in my inbox.
Yeah, definitely remember consent. Remember, we're all people, we're all diverse. Thelemites are as diverse as the greater population. I always like to remind people that there are Jewish Thelemites, there's Catholic Thelemites. I interact with some of those all the time.
There's the cat.
Um, oh my gosh, that is important. Oh my gosh, how cute! Look at that fluff ball and the white paw. Oh my goodness. I love cats so much. I mourn the fact I'm allergic to one of my partner's cats a lot.
Sorry, I totally did not mean to like distract from what you were saying.
What is the cat's name? Which one?
His name is his name is Basquiat, named after
Oh,
Jean-Michel Basquiat.
that's so sweet.
Yes.
So everyone feel free to put their love for the cat in the comments, please, if you got this far in the interview slash chat. So, but yeah, I think this has been great. I think we've touched on a lot of things that people might be too shy or nervous or ignorant about to ask. Um, and I think to summarize this, I sort of reflect on the fact that, again, remember we're people, and don't be afraid to come interact with us. Come say hi, go to Star Sapphire's shows, come watch my YouTube videos. A large part of my efforts on the internet is to not normalize what I do, but so much just share authentically from a place of vulnerability. Like, it is really vulnerable to share like vlogs of my life. Like, here's how I celebrate the autumnal equinox. Here's these rituals I do. Here's how I do these rituals. And my idea is to really, first of all, help people do them, especially solo practitioners who may just be picking this up for the first time, but also break down these barriers and reach across the lines to other people and say, hey, there's been a lot of us being maligned throughout history, and especially the Satanic Panic. And so much of what you see about Thelemites on the internet is not representative of us. It is not true. We are people, quite cool and kind and creative people, I think. And I do think a lot of us can be a little bit more creative and eccentric, but not bad people. Is everyone a good person? No, because that's this living in a society part. But I would not say those people are bad because they are Thelemites. And that's the difference. That's that's the difference between bigotry and assumptions, is you are calling people out for their problematic behaviors and other things and not lumping them together in a giant group and saying all Thelemites are bad people. So
Also, speaking of satanic panic, I did not actually look this up, but one of my friends posted today. I guess the Pope had tweeted some satanic panic.
yeah, Richard
Uh,
shared that, yeah, too.
yeah, that was hilarious. Like he was like, the occultists are out there. I'm like, hi, it's me.
Yeah, so that's fun. That's just a good reminder that that is still alive and well in certain notable percentages of the population. So, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of the climate of where we're at, and I mean the election coming up, and this and that, and what we were just talking about,
Hmm.
that kind of way of thinking is definitely going to be more on the rise.
Sure.
Getting more like what I ran into a couple years ago with family thinking that I'm inviting the devil in.
Mm.
Nobody tell them that I have an Anton LaVey act. So, unfortunately, that's just the world that we're living in, and it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, which is why doing this is more important than ever. So,
Exactly.
reaching across the lines,
Exactly.
educating people, encouraging people to learn more about your neighbor and learn more about diversity of perspectives. I mean, even within the occult community, I do occasionally see very ignorant takes on Thelemites and Thelema. And here's another good thing to remember. You may not agree with our beliefs, our practices. You may hate Aleister Crowley. That's fine. You do you. But don't hate us. We are people. We are human beings just of a different set of beliefs than you. And at the end of the day, if you're hating an entire religious group just because they're that religion you don't agree with, that's bigotry. And
Yeah,
you really need to do better. So again, you don't have to come out of your explorations of Thelemite, but I hope people would come out of broadening their perspectives with more tolerance and more love. And I do think your world will be broader if you choose to explore and reach across that divide to meet new people and learn about new perspectives. So I think
definitely.
that about sums it up. Is there anything else you wanted to sum up that we touched on that was important, do you think?
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And
And love is the
really,
law,
yeah,
love under will.
exactly. And when you look into that, it's just every single person, it's very individualistic to what their true will is. So making these grand assumptions or stereotypes about people where, it's not necessarily true.
For sure, for sure. And this has been absolutely amazing. I appreciate you so much for spending all of this time with me. Thank you. This has been awesome. And if someone would be interested in following you, what are the best websites to follow you on? Great places to find you, all of that.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not on Twitter anymore. I think the account's still up. So if you find me on there, I will not I don't go on there ever. So all of my social media is under my handle, which is Art Dance Magic, and of course that's magic with a K at the end. And I'm working on a website right now. The website's
Yay!
mainly going to be for burlesque for producers. But one of the plans that I do have is just kind of having a little tab on there of resources of authors, books that I like, people like
Cool.
you who I like
Oh, thank you.
about Thelema because I
Mhm,
do have people who ask me about it all the time, even when I'm at shows, when they hear my little bio, when they hear,
mhm,
they're like, "What is all of that? What is Babylon?" And so
mhm.
people will come up to me after shows and ask me. It is artdancemagic.com. If you click on there, there's like it's a work in progress. It does not look cute right now. So it's a little bit more than like, the 1990s like under construction with like a little guy digging a shovel. It's a little bit more than that, but
That's
there's
amazing.
some stuff there. But yeah, Instagram is mainly where I'm at. Again, Art Dance Magic, or you can type in Star Sapphire and Threads, which I'm trying to use more. Oh, and TikTok, which I'm also trying to use more. Did not understand TikTok for the longest time. That was just the millennial in me that was like, what is this new thing? Like old man yells at cloud. Uh, but now I'm trying to actually use it more and trying to like, I don't have a lot on there. I'm trying to post more. So hopefully, yeah, basically art, dance, magic with a K across the board.
Wonderful. And for people listening who didn't catch that, I will put all of the links below in the description so you can click on them and follow. So awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners. You're amazing. As always, I am the center of expression for the primal will to good, and so are you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. 93s, everybody.
93s.